Hi everybody, welcome to the 6th Sunday of Easter. I'm here inside St. Mark's. You know, I love coming to church. I especially love coming when it's full of people because it's a place where I see my friends. I get to learn about what's going on in their lives. I love coming to the communion rail and receiving the bread. Still, if the only way for me to meet with or feel God's presence was here in church, then I would be in a really tight spot, especially right now when we're all in quarantine. No one can be at church. So where is God? Where can we find God? When Jesus was alive, the temple was the center of Jewish religion. The temple in Jerusalem was where people believed that God lived. There was a special room in the temple called the Holy of Holies. Only one person could go inside this room, and that was the high priest. And he could only go in there once a year on Yom Kippur. That meant that ordinary men, women, and children could never be fully in God's presence. Our modern churches have many of the same symbols and traditions as the Jewish temple. We have a special place where priests can go, and that for us is the altar. We also have kind of a holy of holies called our tabernacle. A tabernacle is where we keep our communion host after it's been blessed. So this is a very sacred and special place where we believe God exists in the host, in the bread and the wine for communion. But there are important ways that our religion and culture differ from the religion that Jesus experienced growing up. One of the important things that Jesus wanted to challenge during his time on earth was this idea that God was only accessible to a very few people. He challenged this idea that God could only be found inside the temple. One of Jesus's gifts for us was a new way of thinking about where we could find God. And we see that in the book of Acts. In Acts, Paul is talking to Athenians, which are Greeks, and here's what he tells them. He says, "The God who made the world and everything in it, he who is Lord of heaven and earth, does not live in shrines made by human hands, nor is he served by human hands as though he needed anything, since he himself gives to all mortals life and breath and all things. From one ancestor he made all nations to inhabit the whole earth, so that they would search for God and perhaps grope for him and find him, though indeed he is not far from each one of us." So one of the most important lines of that reading is the idea that God does not live in shrines made by human hands. We often really feel and connect with God when we're in holy places like churches, but that's not the only place that God exists. The other thing that I really love about this passage is that Paul tells us that God is something we can search for. It's not something that we always know. It's a great mystery. God isn't just necessarily an old man sitting up in heaven. As Paul tells us, the world is a place for us to search for God. So I am ready to search today. I have got my binoculars and my searching hat, and we are going to go on a search for God. Springtime is a great time to search for God because everything is coming back into life. New flowers, teeny, teeny, tiny flowers, little tiny bugs are all around us. This is a time for us to look around in the world and see where we can find God. This week, your challenge is to search for God outside, inside, in your heart, and in other people. This week, I pray, God, help us as we search for you in ourselves, in the people around us, and in the vast universe you created. This week, we remember that you, God, are the greatest mystery. Help us grow comfortable with uncertainty and be with us in our search for you. We remember that no matter where we go, you are not far from us. Amen.